Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Coming up, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of the Polynesian villas in this week's episode of the DVC Show. The DVC Show is brought to you by dvcstore.com. You'll save thousands of dollars on your next DVC contract when you let the experts at the DVC Store help welcome you home. Visit them at www.dvcstore.com or call 1-800-550-6493. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show, coming to you from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined at the table this week by my good friend, Sean Falk.
Hello.
Jackie Gailey.
Hi, everyone.
From the DVC Store, Jamie Carr.
Hey.
And Mr. Jerry Saito.
Hello, good day.
Joining us via Skype, Mr. Pete Shidley.
Hey, everybody.
And back on the controls, our associate producer, Mr. Corey Fiescanaro.
Welcome home.
And just a reminder to everybody, if you need to rent some points for a DVC stay, give our folks over at the DVC Store a call, 1-800-550-6493, or check out their website. Give them some time. Don't reach out for a reservation next week. Okay? And it's about matching up points and finding the right points and making sure that space is available. As any DVC member will tell you, that's a challenge. Even when you're just using points regularly, it's a challenge. So the more notice you can give, the better. What's a good?
I'd say at least 5 months out would be good. I mean, there's some spotty availability, 4 months, 3 months, 2 months, but 5 months is where you get some better options.
So there you have it.
At least, you know.
At least 5 months out. All right. So we're going to talk about the pro. We've been doing this like once a month right now. The pros and cons of each of the DVC resorts. We want to do the pros and cons of the Polynesian. Oh, wait. No. Wait. I have been forgetting in these shows. Pete, you have something to talk about.
Oh, the availability chart?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I can update that. Yeah. So anyone that goes on and looks at those availability charts that I prepped, they were originally set up for studios and one bedrooms. We decided about a year ago to expand it to 2 bedrooms. And so finally a year later, because that's how long it takes to prep those charts, myself and Bing Showway is the other Diz board person who gets involved, and they're updated. So if you go on to the availability charts on the Diz boards under, I think it's under the DVC member,
Member services.
Form it's under, but it's on there, and the 2-bedroom charts are all on there now too. So go on there, and you can compare that to the 1-bedrooms and the studios.
Yeah, and that's a good tool if you're thinking about renting points. Kind of give you an idea, especially if you're not a DVC member and you can't log in and see what the availability is. It kind of give you a good idea of what you're looking for and whether or not, at each resort, and whether or not it's going to be available. So we'll make sure we have.
And that's true. They are even good for rentals because they'll tell you if I'm 4 months out what resorts are probably going to be available at what time of year. So it's worth it even as a non-member to take a look at those.
Sure, absolutely. So over on dizboards.com under DVC member services, but we'll make sure there's a link in the show notes. Fiasco has his work cut out for him with these shows, making sure there are links everywhere for things.
Oh, just links. Not that big of a deal.
All right. So we're going to talk about the pros and cons of the Polynesian. And I'm going to go ahead and start off. I only have one con for the Poly. No, there's only studios. Studios and the bungalows. There are no 1 or 2 bedrooms.
No, there's 2 bedrooms. It's got the bungalows. Sorry.
The bungalow is a 2-bedroom. Right. But there's no 1-bedroom option. Or a standard 2-bedroom that doesn't cost 8 billion points a night.
Exactly.
So, technically the bungalow is a 2-bedroom, but when you compare it to a regular 2-bedroom, it's at least double or triple the points.
Insane.
So that is my biggest complaint. I mean, now, that being said, these studios are very large. They're, Polynesian studios. Remember, the Polynesian was built in 1971 when it opened. And in those days, 425, 450 square foot room was the norm, which is why the Poly rooms are so big. And they just converted, what was it, 2 longhouses into DVC rooms, and they made those rooms studios. So they're they're still larger than most DVC studios. I think the only
there's 3 buildings that were converted.
3 buildings converted.
Yep. Pago Pago, Moria, and I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, Tokelau.
You probably are.
They're also the only studio that has the additional bathroom. So you've got the shower, sink, toilet in one, and then you've got the shower, bathtub, toilet, and sink in the other.
There isn't a toilet in that shower.
Oh, sorry.
Just a
the
sink.
second one is, but
It's a
there's
sink and shower.
a shower and a sink. So essentially,
yeah, and that for a
Huge.
studio, because they do have that split 2 shower design in some of the 1 bedrooms, or but not studios.
Right.
But so it's just studios.
So it's the only studio that's got the extra shower. So if you've essentially got 4 or 5 people trying to get ready at one time, it's a game changer.
Or if you have 2 adults that each take a lot of time in the shower.
There you go.
There you go.
That's
I have a pro mixed with a con. And so I'll start with the pro. The pro is that out of all the resorts I've stayed at, the Polynesian has the best room service. But I think out of a lot of the other DVC resorts, with the exception of maybe Saratoga Springs and maybe Old Key West, it suffers with the actual sit-down dining. I think you have far better options at other resorts like Grand Floridian, Contemporary, Copper Creek, than you do at the Polynesian as far as their sit-down dining resorts go. Especially
I'm gonna
I have to
I'm
disagree
gonna
with you on
disagree.
that.
I was
Kona
gonna say-
Cafe, Ohana.
I was gonna say mine, because Polynesian is very, very low on my list of where I would want to buy. Maybe even the last one that I would want to buy, and that's just personal taste. But the only thing, one of the few things that I am I would like at least is the dining. Because I'd rather own it Grand Floridian, or price wise I'd rather own it, and availability wise I'd buy Tower. If I'm going to be on that monorail route, so Poly gets last for me. But even if I stayed at the other 2, I would go over to Polynesian and eat more
That's
than
what
likely.
we do every
So
time we
I
stay
still
out
would
there is go over there to eat.
I'm going to say that Kona Cafe has really, really come back from the low it had been experiencing in terms of its food and quality a few years ago. I've now eaten there in the last year 4 times, and the meals have been anywhere from good to outstanding. Service has been consistently excellent. Ohana, while we have service problems with the rushing, I'm even starting to hear reports now, more and more so, anecdotally, that is starting to ease up. I think maybe they finally are getting the message. I've never had a problem with the quality of the food and the flavor of the food at Ohana dinner. Breakfast is another story, but dinner has always been, I've always found it to be very good. Plus, you have what is arguably one of the best quick service locations anywhere at Walt Disney World in Captain Hook's.
What is
Captain
it about
Cook's.
the dining that you're not into?
So I have had negative experiences, specifically with Ohana. Once I hear everybody say, "Oh, it's awesome again," then I'll go back. Or maybe if we review it, I'll obviously go back. But as far as Kona Cafe goes, maybe I have to go back and go to Kona Cafe. But I look at the price point of Kona Cafe, and it's comparable to the price point of Jico. It's almost comparable to the price point of Citricos. It's almost comparable to these other restaurants that I think are way better, in my opinion.
I do agree with that point or whatever. Kona Cafe to me is a miss. Oh, the food's good, but the price is way too expensive. They didn't have any walls. It's literally in the lobby.
Yeah.
You're eating in the lobby.
Right.
I just don't. I don't get it. I'm this isn't. It seems like a quick service restaurant.
Doesn't feel
It
signature.
does,
But
it
it's
does. But the
$40
food
steaks.
is the food is really good.
It
I
is
think the
good.
sleeper that nobody brought up too was when I was at Trader
Trader Sam's.
Sam's. We had every intent to leave and go eat somewhere else and we ask about food, and that food was shockingly good. I was amazed. I had no interest in leaving. So I think you're covered on every base. I mean, you're covered on so many bases there.
I got a flatbread there, and it was so
That's what
good.
I had. It was
Yeah,
phenomenal.
that Hawaiian flatbread.
It was
so
phenomenal.
good.
We ordered a second one after we ate the
it was
first
awesome.
one.
You can also get the Dole Whip there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think on the outside. I think you have to go outside.
I was going to mention the Dole Whip stand. If you're a fan of Dole Whips, you can walk up to the window and just order one.
Yeah. My only complaint with Polynesian is Ohana's. I love Ohana's. Like, I love it. But what I hate is you can't get in. Like, you have to really book that far in advance. That's my only gripe with Poly is I just can't get into that restaurant.
Mine, I mean, the other part, it does go with what Pete was saying. The other part of why Polynesian's so low on my list is a bungalow issue. Just because, like, when your only option is deluxe studios and bungalows, those bungalows are never full. Like, anytime I'm there, there's never people in them. I might see one family.
It's a
at
ghost
most.
town. It really
It's a ghost
is.
town. And there's got to be a breaking point somewhere down the road where Disney's like, we have to lower the price on the bungalows, like points per night. And when they do, it's going to drive the price of the studios up. Because that's the only option, as well as when you're buying, like, let's say, like, if every resort was like 1 million points, and they're dedicating out 80% of their points to bungalows, then 100% of people are fighting over 20% of availability. And eventually it's just going to reach this threshold where I was like, I have no interest in Polynesian. I've got to be done with this. But Polynesian by far has like the most loyal fan base of people. Like, the people are like, can get like vicious about how much they love
I don't know that they have
Polynesian.
the most loyal, because I think, you talk to owners. I've talked to owners at Old Key West. I've talked to owners at Saratoga Springs that have the same fierce loyalty to their resorts.
Almost every, like, a lot of the articles and stuff that get published and everything, almost every single one of them that says, like, I became a DVC member, it was either on a Polynesian visit or they went over to the Polynesian and saw it. The Polynesian's always in it somehow, even if they didn't buy there. Somehow, like, the Polynesian turns people on to wanting to do DVC. I'm not sure what it is about it that brings that. I don't know if y'all have that experience.
I think
with
Jerry
people
and
saying
I are top on the list of people that would fight for the Polynesian.
I
So
love
when you
Poly.
brought it up, I was like, there's no con. Like, it has a very special place in my heart. I think the only con for me, and this is going to sound like really gripey, was I'm not a morning person. So that boat that starts picking people up
At the transportation and
at the
ticket
very
center.
peak of dawn after I've been out enjoying Disney in the evening, and having a first floor room with the patio just radiating that noise, and having it every 10 to 15 minutes, I eventually just said it's time to get up and enjoy the day.
That is one of the most common complaints I hear.
It's really my
about
only
Polynesian.
complaint about staying there was that it was enough for me to say if I was going to stay there again, I would actually. I don't generally request specific longhouses or specific villas or specific things, but just to even get out of that corner I was in, because you really could. It was enough to get you up and out of bed and say, I'm not staying here any longer.
Well, you have two view options at Poly. You have Lakeview and Garden View. Lakeview is going to be over that lake, over Seven Seas Lagoon, where the ferry is going out. When the boats pull out, they have to sound their horn. And yes, it's loud. But, if you're on the 3rd floor of that longhouse, you also have an unobstructed view of the Magic Kingdom. Which is what Fiasco had in the room that he stayed in for our DVC 7 Resorts in 7 weeks series.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty stunning view.
And I got to say, that's the nicest studio. That's the nicest studio I've ever seen. And I love the Polynesian. But for me, like I said, the dining. I know most of you all disagree with me, but...
Well, the good news is you can hop on the monorail and just ride right on over to somewhere else, but you love the other 90% of it, I mean...
Here's another thing and this is nitpicky, and
my Warren comment was nitpicky.
Almost elitist. Well, this is going to be even more so. I love the Polynesian. I've always loved the Polynesian. But it suffered in comparison after I saw Aulani. Because Aulani is such an authentic Hawaiian resort where the Poly really is more of a caricature of a Polynesian resort.
I like that character.
No, so do I. So do I. But when you when you've done Aulani, the poly suffers.
I completely 100% agree with your statement, but I also envision like when you come in Aulani and they have the floor to ceiling doors that slide open. I think, could you imagine Orlando in August? Like, no, you can't replicate it only because it wouldn't. You're not getting island breeze. You're not getting the same thing. There are certain things like when you go up the staircase. Near Captain Cook's, like when you go up, that is the exact staircase that's in Aulani. So I always get that kind of wave washes over me, like I feel like I'm back. There's a couple of nods that really make you feel like if you close your eyes, you are in. It's the exact same staircase.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, but so there's a couple of nods that make you feel like you're there. But again, you wouldn't want floor to ceiling doors that open in August in Orlando. So I think you have to kind of trade off the island breeze with. I think
air conditioning.
Is there
exactly?
Because I've stayed at the Polynesian, not DVC side, but I've stayed regular. Is there anything to be said, like for you guys, as far as like the check-in process? Because it doesn't have a dedicated lobby, really. Like, is it longer or more complicated or anything in y'all's experience?
Checking into the Polynesian?
Yeah, by comparison to other DVC resorts that have their own dedicated check-in.
Well, my experience has been I've checked in beforehand and then got the text message, had my Magic Band, and just walked up to the room.
Now that they've got the text message alert where the Magic Band through My Disney Experience opens your door.
Yeah.
I would say that I think the only one where they have, obviously Old Key West and Saratoga are dedicated, so let's take that out. My comments only around hotels. Grand Floridian did it right. They have the porte cochere where you pull up for DVC. They have a dedicated check-in, but that's really the only one where you're not sharing with the hotel side. But I think because of, like Jerry said, with the Magic Bands now, they've eliminated everyone's not lining up to stand in line to check in.
And I've checked in before without the Magic Band, and just regular hotel check-in. You just walk up to the front, they give you your Magic Band, they check you in, you go to your room.
Well, I've always wondered about that because, like, when we did our review for Beach Club, and when we wanted to go right downstairs within the DVC building, there was like a person at a booth, like talking to us about, like, because we were trying to get into Cape May or whatever, and so like he helped us and like took us over there and everything. So I've always just wondered, like, Polynesian doesn't have that. I don't know if that's a big issue for people.
I think that's more of a concierge at Beach Club, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually most of them don't.
It's just the regular hotel check-in.
Yeah, that's more of a Beach Club has a different concierge I've actually purchased tickets to stuff at that concierge. It looks like their front desk, but they're actually more of a concierge, and none of the other ones really have that. But I wait in line most of the time. Like Jerry said, he used Magic Band on, for years and years and years. All you did was wait in line. They're staffed for that. They know everyone's coming around the same time. And if it's super busy, then drop your bags, go do something else.
Is it also a big deal that, like, it doesn't seem to have its own dedicated DVC pool? Even though, like, Stormalong is amazing, but, like, the other ones, like, even for, like, Bay Lake has, like, their own, and like
quiet pool.
Well, there is a quiet pool at the Poly. It's not a DVC pool. It's always been there, but there is a quiet pool at the Poly.
Okay.
And they did completely redo that pool right around the time they opened the Poly DVC. And I did want to we're coming up with a lot of cons, but I did want to add a pro to this. I really like where the longhouses are located in the resort, because some of the resorts, you mentioned Beach Club, I think Wilderness Lodge, the DVC, or at least Boulder Ridge, the DVC portion is kind of off to the side or in the back or whatever. The Poly longhouses are really right in the middle of the resort. They're very close to the quiet pool. They're very close to the main pool and the main the main house there. They're also a close walk to the TTC, and that makes it very convenient if you want to go to Epcot rather than having to go over to the monorail and ride around to the TTC like you do for the Grand Floridian or for Bay Lake Tower. You can walk about 5 minutes to the TTC, and you're right there on the Epcot line. You can go right to Epcot. So it actually is very convenient for both Magic Kingdom and Epcot, I think more so than the other monorail resorts.
Yep.
I think it also has a really good, like, even though the luau is definitely not Alani's luau, but it does have something like that. That's an option that's right there at your resort. That's like a very, if you're having, like, this is like a birthday thing or whatever, like, it's really easy to have a dedicated special event restaurant that is right there at your property.
And when we talked about OQS, I think we all said that you felt like once you go through the gate, you're there. You don't really realizing. I think Polynesian does an amazing job of making you feel like you're there.
You're in the South Pacific.
You're there.
Don't get me wrong. I love the Poly. I agree. I think the theming is great. The only reason I wouldn't buy there is the lack of one-bedroom units. If they had one-bedroom units, I'd be all in. But
I have that beef with those bungalows too, because when you go from having the tree houses at Saratoga Springs that can sleep up to 9 for the price per night of basically a 2-bedroom villa anywhere, and then you sleep up to 9 people, and then you go to those poly bungalows and they sleep.
They sleep 9, I believe.
The points are outrageous for
they don't
those.
sleep 9,
I
though,
was
do
looking
they?
once.
Do they sleep 9?
oh, hold on, one at a time. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but if you look at it, you can rent 7 studios for the price of one night in the bungalows. So
It's kind of crazy.
It's a big difference.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. So that's that can and I got to be honest. When the bungalows first opened and they were the only game in town, they were amazing. But I'm going to tell you what, the Copper Creek cabins blow those bungalows out of the water, no pun intended. Nice. The only thing those bungalows have going for them is the view of the Magic Kingdom and the fireworks. That's it. And I'll tell you what, I will gladly give up that view in exchange for how much nicer the cabins at Copper Creek are. So, and again, as Sean mentioned, they're practically empty all the time.
Oh, yeah.
They're practically empty. So, I think at some point they're going to have to lower. I think you're right. They're going to have to lower the points in those bungalows, and raise the points on the studios. But there you have it. That's our pros and cons of Disney's Polynesian Villas. And that will do it for this episode of our show. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again next week. Have a good week.